Se o silêncio dissesse tudo, sentimento bom que me leva pro outro mundo. A vontade de te ver já é maior que tudo. Não existem distâncias no meu novo mundo, tipo coisas da sétima.
We're in the house of Drysdale, Robert Drysdale. Welcome back, Clint Cronin Show, episode number 77.
Pleasure to be back.
Pleasure to have you on, man. I think the last time I saw you was either at Worlds in Long Beach or on TV in Kazakhstan. Because they were both back to back.
I can't remember which one was first, but yeah, man, it's been it doesn't stop, man. There's a lot. Jiu-Jitsu has grown a lot, and I'm just excited to be part of the revolution. So
yeah, a big part of it. ACB is it's obviously where the money's at right now.
Yeah.
And you'll see a bunch of different grappling promotions sort of popping up out of the weeds, some more organized than others. But then, you'll have different guys that are associated with specific ones. But ACB, everybody, like that's the who's who.
They swept the whole jiu-jitsu world, man. They just swept it from its feet. And they have, I'd say out of the top 50 grapplers in the world, that they have like 40 of them signed. So it's what's crazy about is that you're going to get that what ACB provides every month, right? Once a month with their shows. You're going to get once a year with IBJJF, and that's the IBJJF World Championships Open Division.
Yep.
That's the only place you're going to find the equivalent of what you get in ACB every month. The other equivalent is ADCC every 2 years. Yeah. And those are the only two equivalents where you're going to have that many world titles and that many world-class grapplers on the same stage. And ACB provides that every month for free, which is very, very generous on their end.
Yeah, because a lot of the other top-end grapplers wind up going to events that are usually shown on the individual promotions website, which sometimes the streaming isn't great.
Yeah.
Or it'll be on flowgrappling.com.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just wind up pirating it.
Yeah. I think in this day and age, it's difficult to control information. I think there was an effort, I never got upset over it. Like, if you can't, Sony Pictures can't stop it. Like, I think you got to be realistic about what the audience wants. And I think ACB understands that. With that being said, I think people don't mind paying for something if they feel they're getting something out of it. I think it's not clear to me where this whole conversation is going to end. Like, what is entertainment going to be like in 10 years? Like, where are we going to settle, right? Where is going to be that happy middle? Because like Netflix offers so much for $8 a month. Like, it's hard to compete with that when you think about it,
It is, but I think a lot of these companies see that and they're going off and doing their own thing. So Netflix over the next few years is going to be struggling because all the different content providers that sort of like contribute to like what makes Netflix great, they're pulling out. Disney's totally pulled out of Netflix. Warner with the DC universe, they're pulling all DC.
They're going to create their own channels.
They already did.
Yeah.
So any new stuff, like all the Star Wars stuff's coming out of the Marvel one, or because Marvel and Disney and Star Wars is all the same thing now.
Yeah.
And that just the Marvel movies, that's like 18 of them. How much time do you think people
they have a monopoly over like the main, like probably the biggest blockbusters in the last 10 years?
Yeah, and they hit numbers that no one's seen before, and losing that, and
it's a matter of time before they create their own Netflix.
They've already begun.
That makes sense. Now that you put it like that, it makes a lot of sense. I think with jiu-jitsu, it's still, there has been talks about getting ACB on Flow. There are avenues we can pursue when it comes to creating like a one universal channel for jiu-jitsu. I think that's eventually what's going to happen. It's just not clear where that's going to be yet.
So I think for small promotions, whether it's amateur wrestling, like the independent pro wrestling scene, or MMA or jiu-jitsu, Flow Grappling or Flow in general, like Flow, I don't know what the parent company is called, but they have multiple avenues of multiple content channels, and they're great for those smaller companies that don't necessarily have either the skills or the budget or just the
structure, to create, to deliver,
to do all that stuff. So it's great for them. It's great for college scouts and pro scouts looking for the next guy, like finding the next John Jones or whatever, right? But for a promotion that's a little bit more established, I think the content, like the distribution rights and like the ownership rights of the content, is definitely more favorable towards flow. Like I don't think
no, I think they the closest thing to a monopoly over what we're describing is flow. The question is, like, you know, I mean, I would like to see ACB on flow. I think that would be a good move on everyone's end, but it's unclear what direction this is going to go. Right now, it's still unclear.
It's great that it's on YouTube now. The video quality is really good.
Yeah.
It feels like you're watching TV. So, you know, versus some of them, I remember watching the early Metamoris where it's just like, okay, you know.
Yeah.
So and I think in terms of overall production quality for like a video product, for just, you know, content, you know, we're watching jiu-jitsu, we're watching grappling, right? ACB's up there. EBI in terms of their broadcast quality is great.
Yeah.
In person, the fight to win stuff's a little cooler than the EBI events.
Yeah, I think that like EBI has excelled at and this is like their strongest suit is marketing.
Yeah.
They've done exceptionally well in that regard. But like, here's the thing about marketing. Like, it's like a pumping hot air into a balloon, man. You can only pump it. You know, it's only going to get you so far. After a while, like, quality is going to come across, and it's like, you know, they have good grapplers. Don't get me wrong, but you can't compare it to some of the other events that are out there. Like, and when it comes to overall quality, you know, so technical quality.
Yeah, it feels like more of a niche.
Yeah, it's a subculture. It's like the subculture of the subculture, you know. But I think jiu-jitsu has gotten big enough to warrant these things. I personally don't like it. I think it's detrimental to the art of jiu-jitsu. I would like to see a unified jiu-jitsu, but I think there's a tendency in sports when it gets too big, unless there is, like in football, you know, you have like the NFL. So like, no, very few people would want to challenge the NFL. I think things like EBI came around at a time where IBJJF was established as the leading jiu-jitsu organization on the planet, but perhaps not to the extent where they could, you know, be enough of a threat to other organizations to attempt to challenge them, you know. And this is bad for the sport. I think one reason why judo grew so much is because Jigoro Kano understood this right away. And he goes, it has to be centralized under one umbrella, and this is how we're going to make judo the greatest martial art on earth. And he did that.
It's in every university. It's everywhere globally.
He changed the world. The martial arts as is exists because of Jigoro Kano's vision. And you know, you want to split it into 20, like, look at Kempo. It's split into, I don't even know how many Kempo styles they have. Like karate in general, how many different styles. So you can say that, oh, I like this rule set better than that one, but you can't tell me that you're going to create the biggest, most popular, most practiced martial art on earth without unified rules. And I think we're losing because of that.
Yeah, there is that splinter effect. And, you know, what I noticed at this last IBJJF Worlds was attendance was crazy compared to even the previous year, compared to PANS.
Yeah.
The number of people that still attend. So while they may not have, you know, the best, you know, unless you're just trying to watch your, you know, specific matches, you know, subscribing and paying for whatever it is and watching 5 days of jiu-jitsu, gi jiu-jitsu matches, whatever. Yeah. It's tedious, right?
And I'll say this, you know, needless to say, we both love jiu-jitsu. This is what we do. This is our life. I've dedicated my life. I can't watch more than an hour straight but I can't watch an hour straight of anything, really. I think we're part of a generation. We got to be realistic too. Like, we are part of a generation that we've been overwhelmed with entertainment. And we don't realize we live in such an unusual period in history, in human history, where we are bombarded with information. 500 years ago, like, you had one book. You would reread that book. If you could read to begin with, right? Assuming you could read, you probably read that book 20 times.
That's the book.
You know, and that was it. That was your YouTube, your television, your Netflix, your video games. It was all in one little book. Now, like, if people send me a 5-minute video, I don't watch it. You know why? I don't want to give that video no matter how incredible it may be, I don't want to give it 5 minutes of my life. And for me to sit there and watch a jiu-jitsu match for 5 days straight, I do it because it's my job, and I enjoy watching my students compete. But to be frank, I think the entertainment aspect is, you know, certainly a difficult thing to do in martial arts in general. There's a reason why, like, it doesn't sell like maybe football does. And it may be too difficult to solve. Personally, I like martial arts for its efficiency, for its social qualities, for its technical qualities, for its the strategical aspect of it. To me, the entertainment aspect is like the very bottom of the list, personally. It's not why I train.
Yeah, I mean, I did commentary for a Fight to Win a few months ago in San Jose, and it was 5 hours of commentary of calling the matches, and my job was to, tell a story, be the soundtrack, and tell the people watching on Flow why this was the most important thing, why this match is important. There's a title on the line, why this title is prestigious, why it matters, like why are they fighting, and why are you getting your money's worth? Why should you pay to watch it? So because I was engaged and like it was my job to do it. Like when we're there coaching or competing, it's like you're engaged in this exact thing. But from an entertainment standpoint, if I don't know them, you have to see like the car crash,
Yeah.
Because my attention span is such that I think a lot of people that have been bombarded with content, just visual overstimulation.
It's very difficult. Like I think one thing perhaps like it's a quality and perhaps in some ways it's a flaw of ACB is that the shows are so long, they're so good. Yeah, I think the last show in Russia we had 21 fights. That's a lot. And there were 3 5-minute rounds. We had 2 title fights. There were 5 5-minute rounds. So I think me and Brawley were commentating for something like 8 hours straight. And it's, I don't think people fully appreciate. I'm sure you do because you know what I'm talking about. But not like how difficult it is to be for 8 hours straight. You have to be sharp, paying attention. Your language has to be proper. You have to be sharp. You have to be witty. You have to be sometimes funny, sometimes informative. Pay attention to what's going on in the fights. Not get distracted. It is not saying anything stupid. You have to be basically focused for 8 hours straight. And if you're at home watching, you take that for granted. You go to the bathroom, you pull out your phone, you talk to your friends. It's easier. But when you're actually 100% invested in what's going on in the fight, and you can't blink because otherwise you'll miss that great moment. And it's exhausting, but at the same time, it's fun. One thing I try to do, and I kind of goes back to what you were saying, is we try to make it entertaining when, in the sense where if I'm in your closed guard, right, and nothing's happening, I think the commentator doesn't have to describe that. If you're watching ACB, you know what a closed guard is. There's no need to describe that, fighter A is inside, fighter B is closed. Okay, so what we start talking about is like what we're talking about right now. We'll talk about topics related to jiu-jitsu, but not necessarily about the fight that's going on that might be slow in that particular moment. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback because of that. So that's been great. The 2-man booth, having a color guy and a play-by-play and being able to kind of go back and forth and just fill in the... Because honestly, there's so many grapplers, and you'll have someone in a world title match, and you might not know who that is. And it's like it's our job in this role to know those things and to explain to people why this is this person is a threat for this other guy. And every once in a while, it'll look lopsided from a distance. Yeah. You might not know this Australian grappler. You might not know this up and coming. One thing, and I've made this mistake a couple of times where like I've gotten facts wrong because simply it's almost an MMA. If you're an hardcore MMA fan, you can barely remember who fought who. And those guys fight way less than in jiu-jitsu. Because remember, jiu-jitsu, you're fighting like in the World Championship. If you're doing well, 10 fights right there. How do you know who's beaten? Like it's incredibly difficult to remember every single tournament that goes on. I, of course, can't keep up with every result. I remember some, but it's happened before where I've said it's so-and-so beat so-and-so and it didn't. And then the guy calls me on it later, not angry, but it's the kind of, you have to be very, very informed as per results and how, A beat B the last tournament. And you don't want to slip, of course, you want to be informed, but that's in itself is a job. Just knowing who's beating who and how.
Oh yeah, I mean, you go to Reddit, you see people posting on social media because there are people that are listening to everything. Like they're that into this stuff. Yeah. There are jiu-jitsu fans now. It's like there's MMA fans.
You know what? And I used to say that jiu-jitsu is a crowd that brought practitioners, not fans. And I think that's true to a large extent. It's the opposite of MMA. It has very few practitioners, which is why I don't recommend it as a business model in MMA. I think it's a horrible business model, which is I always insist in BJJ. It's a much better business model for gyms. But I'm starting to change in the sense where I think there are a lot of like weekend practitioners of jiu-jitsu. And what I mean by that, people that maybe they can't practice, they can't train every day because of their schedule, family, work reasons, traveling, whatever, but they still follow the sport. And I think they're not nowhere near like MMA numbers, of course not, but they do exist and it's growing because the number of practitioners is growing. Like that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. I feel that I think we're scraping the surface still. I used to say it 5-10 years ago that I always felt that jiu-jitsu was going to be the most popular martial art in the world. I've always felt that. And I think we're moving in that direction, but we're still not even close to where we can be. And proof of this is how quickly it is growing in places like Russia and Central Asia, where people they had no idea what BJJ was 10 years ago. And now you're watching black belts beating some of the best Brazilians in their own art. So that to me, that's impressive.
Yeah, you're starting to see a lot of these countries where you wouldn't have expected, or you just figured, well, they probably don't have jiu-jitsu there, but now those cracks are all being filled in. I noticed an Instagram post of yours days or weeks ago. I think one of your students is going to the Philippines to teach.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah,
it's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, to me, and I think I wrote something like this on the post. I've learned to admire. The more I admire, like what society calls successful people, the less I think of society's critical thinking and judgment ability. I've learned to admire people like Pia because, she lives in the richest country in the world. She has a very comfortable life. She owns some property here, and she chooses. It's an option. She has a choice. Like she goes to the Philippines to teach in an orphanage, she's not going to gain anything from it. Like there's absolutely no gain. It's good in itself. I feel that a lot of people are bragging about, oh, I'm going to do charity here. They have to post it on Instagram, right? And I look at that and I'm going and Jesus said, I'm not religious, but he said if the right hand does something, the left hand shouldn't know, and maybe there's an argument. Like if I tell the world that I'm doing good, more people will be inspired by that. But what is your true motivation? I think that's what it comes down to. Like, are you just trying to act like you're a good person, or are you really doing it from the bottom of your heart? And what I see, Clint, I know you want to jump in, I'm sorry, but I think it's a generation that is so vain that people are just more looking for the repercussions of their actions in the sense of I'm going to project the world image of me being an angel than actually trying to help people. But P is genuine. So I admire people like that.
Yeah, I just think people need this constant validation. I think you have
insane. It's like social crack is what I call it.
I think we just have a lot of very insecure people. And I think the social media can just amplify it. Yeah. And because you're able to build this ideal version of yourself and project it.
I suspect, look, I'm no psychologist, but I project that 10, 20 years from now, I think we're going to have suicide rates are going to go up. Anxiety is going to be going worse it's ever been. Depression. We're going to suffer even more from these problems. And it's a growing problem because I call it social crack for a reason. It is not so different from actual drug. No. You're getting a hit and you feel good, and then next day you need another hit, and you're pursuing something. Is there an end to this? Is there an ultimate goal? When everyone knows, cliche as it is, that we should pursue things as an end in itself. You don't train jiu-jitsu because you're expecting a reward, whether that's a medal, recognition, or a belt. You train jiu-jitsu because the act of practicing jiu-jitsu, the act of rolling is an end in itself. And people completely miss that. And they're focused on the wrong things. And I have students like that. And I go out of my way to try to steer my students in this direction, Clint. And it's very difficult because it's not what they're learning online. So for example, it's kind of like being a parent. It's not so different. Your children, and I know because I'm a parent, they learn more from their peers than they learn from you. It's crazy, but they don't want to be like you. Your children want to be like their friends. Their friends are cool. You're old school. You're an idiot. You know what you're talking about, Dad. That's and being a coach, it's not so different. Like if you try to teach them a lesson, they don't trust what you say. They're going to go by what the world is doing, right? And I feel that's kind of the direction the sport is taking. It's kind of sad because I think there's going to be a lot of, I think in the long run, it's very detrimental to everyone, not only to self, but to the sport in general. But there's a lot of good too. Maybe I'm overemphasizing the bad, but there's a lot of good in jiu-jitsu too. And that's primarily why I love it so much. It's a great teacher.
I feel like maybe for concepts or inspiration or something, seeing some technique you haven't seen before and asking an instructor a question like, what is this? What do you but just kind of going off and doing, YouTube jiu-jitsu, and I don't think a lot of people learn, and well until upper belts, that they see this move on YouTube and they just do it. Yeah. But every jiu-jitsu technique has 10,000 details and pressure and the emphasis of where your body goes, and just trying to describe one position or one technique.
It's incredibly difficult. And the cliche as it sounds, I really feel like a beginner in jiu-jitsu. It's like, it really is one of those arts, the more you train, the less you know. And like, I think there was a moment there, you know, where I felt, maybe it was a blue belt, like, okay, this is it. I got it now. Like, you really think, you know, there's a moment there, and there's always a new way of doing something old. There's always a new tweak, a new detail, new training methodology. And what I take other sports as references, sports that are much older than BJJ, let's say wrestling or boxing, and they're constantly improving. They're still improving. Like you know, Floyd Mayweather is arguably the best boxer in history.
Yep.
He would smoke any boxer in the 60s, his weight class. Destroy him. Like, it wouldn't be like Michael Phelps would destroy any swimmer, and not from the 1950s. It's not even, and the beauty of things like swimming, you can actually measure the time, so it's not debatable. Whereas jiu-jitsu, it's hard because there's no way of, you know, factually, objectively measuring these things. But I think sports tend to be in constant evolution. Although I think there's a moment there where things plateau, like it slows down. The evolution slows down.
It's possible. Like, it's one of these laws of diminishing returns. Like, you're going to get so far, and then you're just kind of treading water. Like, here we are. Because
I think about, like, human genetics. You know, of course, there's variation but like there might be limits to what our bodies can and can't do. Like, so this starts with that, not only from a physical, you know, physiological standpoint, but also from a psychological standpoint. You know, and then you go on to that methodology. Yeah, it can improve. Yeah, but methodology training can only go so far. So, for example, I suspect that if you got the time the swimmer had from the very first Olympics to the second Olympics to the third, fourth, they were like 2 seconds faster every Olympics. 2 seconds faster. Today, 0.1 is a lot.
Yeah.
So it's You see what I'm saying? Like, that there was a huge improvement in training methodology. And not only that, but finding people that are athletic for that specific sport. And that raised the bar very high very quickly. But once you have that, you have the Usain Bolts of the world, and you have two guys that are genetically, suppose they were genetically identical. The methodology is going to make the 0.1 difference in the one guy breaking that world record and the other one not. But you see what I'm talking about? We're at a plateau here. It's a very small increment. And I think jiu-jitsu, I don't think it's there yet, but we're going to be there eventually.
Yeah, what I've noticed in terms of just feeling like a beginner, like a white belt, just going and visiting some people that have just different perspectives on things. Like you mentioned wrestling. I've been spending some time with Eric Paulson lately, and you know, the difference in techniques, how it's like an amalgamation of the catch wrestling, no-gi, and just gi jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Sure. But just sitting there and asking why, and you know, the wrestling background he has, being older than the lineage as far back as Brazilian Jiu Jitsu traditionally, or as it's described to us in modern times, goes, just like the why of a lot of things. Like, if you really want to, you know, rack your brain about, you know, over a technique or a position or any submission, you know, the why that goes into it, you'll be there forever. Yeah. Just like this theory, and because most places don't ever talk about that. Yeah. Most training is the move of the day, some calisthenics, or, you know, doing some drilling, and, you know, these guys are more self-defense oriented and these guys are more competition oriented, but like, it's all pretty similar. There isn't much theory in the.
One reason why jiu-jitsu is so complex is I think there's two different kinds of knowledge, and we use the word knowledge as one thing to describe everything, right? Knowledge, and you have to compartmentalize because they're not always the same thing. So, for example, there's a kind of knowledge that I can explain a De La Riva sweep in class, right? That's the verbal nothing, but I can use my memory. I can express that knowledge verbally, and then there's other kind of knowledge that is far deeper. It's silent. You can't. I'll say this, for example. I've seen great athletes. They can't explain what they're doing, but they can do it. Well, that's real knowledge. In my opinion, that's like, okay, that's the real knowledge. Okay, like, it's great that you can explain a move, but I mean, Tony Robbins can explain a move beautifully too. If Tony Robbins spends 20 minutes on, I'm serious here. Like, if you spend 30 minutes on YouTube watching a De La Riva sweep, and you put Tony Robbins to explain that sweep, he'd do it better than all of us. That doesn't make him a jiu-jitsu master, though. It makes him a good talker. And I think people need to learn how to discern mastery of something and someone who's just a good psychologist, a good communicator. Yeah. And there's a huge discrepancy there. The kind of knowledge that I'm interested in is something that's very difficult to verbalize because a lot of it is just instinctual in a lot of ways. So, for example, learn how to place your balance left or right when someone's moving. You're constantly fighting these little battles that you are unaware of it because it doesn't reach your consciousness. You're just reacting. Your body knows. So there's this whole other side, this other intelligence of the human body that I feel like we're largely unaware of. And I see it expressed in jiu-jitsu. Every time I roll, I see it. But can't communicate it because it's not verbal. And it's not something you can explain in class. It's something you have to acquire through experience. You know what I'm talking about. Anyone who trains knows what I'm talking about. But it's if someone has no idea what jiu-jitsu is listening to this right now, it's like, these guys are speaking Mandarin. You have no idea what we're talking about. But if you train, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I feel that is where the wealth of knowledge in jiu-jitsu is. I think that we lack the tools to express that knowledge. I know I try to teach it to my students. And I don't have the words. We're
like two-dimensional objects trying to describe a 3D world or something like that.
It's a perfect way of looking at it. And I'm going, I know there's more going on. Like, how can we communicate what is going on when we're training in class so students can grasp it? And it may be impossible. Like, we just don't have because it's not you can't verbalize it.
And I'm sure it's through some sort of sport science and, on balance and just leverage and, having some sort of mastery of that, from an academic level, because I feel like after, you could call it purple belt, brown belt, black belt, whatever, but after a certain level, you're really just improving your timing. You're really just improving your balance. Your application of your own body and just efficiency. So those things are, how do you verbalize that?
You can't exactly. I think, and I've always said this, and I've gotten some because I'm a heavyweight. So anything I say is like people are immediately suspicious. Oh, you say that because you're a heavier guy. But I've never made a dissociation between athletic ability and technique. I think people do. Oh, there's technique and there's athletic ability. To me, technique is the intelligent use of your athletic ability.
Yep.
Case in point, Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is not strong in the sense that we would describe as a strong person. But his technique is directly tied to his physical ability. So he can swing that golf club way harder than any powerlifter.
It's like a dynamic kind of dexterity as it applies to
It applies to that specific movement. Yeah. So you look at someone like Coyote. He's little. So he's got to be pure technique. He's small. Because our notion of strength is something straight out of Hollywood.
Sure.
It is out of Arnold Schwarzenegger movie or a powerlifting video. You see a guy living like he's big, so that's what strong is. Right? You see the Hulk, that's what strong is. And when it comes to sports, size is actually, I think, close to meaningless. Other than the gravity pulling you down counts, but it doesn't say much about strength. To me, that some of the smaller guys are way more athletic than the big guys I train with, athletic ability wise. And the question is, for the purpose of jiu-jitsu, how can we steer that athletic ability, whatever it may be flexibility, speed, precision, timing, power. How can we steer that in a straight line towards an objective versus having these abilities scattered in all these different directions and nothing gets accomplished?
It's really funny, and I think so many things are just borrowed. Like in the UFC, for example, the statistics they give you, the metrics they give you, the height, weight, age, and then they give you reach. But that's all but useless to me because, well, which reach are we talking about? Because there's like 100 different things that can come at you at once, and maybe there's a more meaningful like composite metric of all of like an aggregate.
It's so arbitrary when you think about it.
You're like, oh, reach,
because
cool.
The thing about like measuring something like the length of someone's arm, it's because anyone can do it. But there are a million other abilities that a fighter has that you can't measure. Everything from mental toughness to endurance to higher red blood cell count.
Yeah.
You understand? We don't measure these things.
This guy has more oxygen.
Like, this is probably more important than height, power, weight. That might be more important than weight, in fact, in a fight. The fact you have a higher red blood cell count. You know why? You can go for longer and faster.
Yeah, more
and
oxygen.
Stronger and explode more. It's that simple. But no one is measuring that.
Nope.
And you don't have to be a physiologist to know this. Like, I know, I've been an athlete my whole life. These things count way more than power, man. Because I don't care how powerful you are. If you can be powerful for 30 seconds, who cares?
Yep.
I would rather be the guy that's average powerful for like 30 minutes, but it's something that's completely missed in the sport analysis. And I feel like we're a bunch of beginners analyzing sport because I'm looking at it. You just mentioned the UFC stats. Yeah, the length of someone's arm.
This is shit.
It's okay. It means something, sure. But it's like there's so many more important things we could be measuring here. Testosterone levels. Holy shit.
Tell us that.
Holy shit. Like, I have any idea how much that can impact? Like some of the performance, just being born with higher testosterone levels because some people are.
Yeah.
That'll be, you know what I'm saying? But like, that's not even part of the conversation. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think that a lot of people just missing out on, man, I think that sports organizations should be like maybe thinking about like, how can we better measure these things, but it might be too complicated. I don't know.
The NFL, actually, I'm not even a big football fan, but I see these preseason stats they give when they, they give you the various, how fast this guy lateral cuts, how fast can he cover space. I mean, if you can cover distance more efficiently than another guy, you have an advantage.
Yeah.
You have a big damn advantage. Like, what does it change? Just a lateral, just being on the ground, getting up. Like, how long does that take?
I think fighting is still, it's still, in a lot of ways, it's still in the 19th century. Like, you measure weight because it's the only thing they could measure. They didn't have the tools to measure anything else, like 200 years ago. So to get into a fight, what is the advantage one person has over the other? We measure weight. That's the only thing. Think about it. It's the only measurement we have.
Yep.
We don't measure age, which is huge. Think about it. Age is huge. You can't put a 20-year-old compete with a 45. It's not the same thing, man. It's not the same thing. I'm 36. I'm telling you, it's different. There's all these other things we could. I mean, I understand that creating a sport with this form might be too difficult, but I think for purposes of understanding what's going on, I think a lot of these numbers are way more relevant than weight and the length of your arm.
So you could, if you were to take, you mentioned two really good metrics, testosterone level, I should say, and then the red blood cell count.
Yeah.
You could take age away and replace it with those two, and those are more going to be more accurate. They're going to be more. They're going to have more weight when it comes to the actual outcome of the fight potential. Because the age is this, but like this guy's been a freak athlete his whole life. Herschel Walker. Yeah. You're just going to tell me
you think it's a coincidence that John Jones' two brothers play in the NFL?
Yeah,
you think that's nourishment? Like you think of mom was just feeding them something different, or you think that they just had like a really different? No, man, they're genetic freaks. Like let's understand what's going on here, guys. No, who are we kidding?
They won the lottery when it comes to genetics.
They won the lottery when it comes to genetics. Like who are we kidding? But I feel there's this whole movement of there's a lot of resentment towards that too, and denial about the reality of sports. So when Conor McGregor puts a quote online, he goes, "There's no talent here. This is all hard work." I'm like, shut up, Conor. You know you're lying. You're intelligent enough to know that you are a very gifted athlete. Yeah, you got stupid good speed. Like your time. These are not things that I just worked hard for it, bro. I worked hard too. Like I've seen a lot of people work hard. Like there's certain things that you're just like swimming upstream, man. It's like trying to get a short person to play basketball in the NBA. Good. You can try hard, buddy, but you're not going to make it.
There's been like two that have made that.
And when we say short, we mean 6 feet tall. That's short in the NBA. You're still way above average, compared to the rest of the human population. But I think there's this movement that people they're in denial because it's not romantic. What people want to have is like, oh, this is how it ought to be. Okay, that's how it ought to be. That's great, but it's not how things are.
Well, because success isn't very endearing at all. You have that the struggle, the fight, that having that hero's journey. That's endearing. People sign on because it's relatable.
Yeah,
as most people aren't that happy.
Yeah.
Because you look at social media, you look at the Joneses. That guy bought a new car. I better buy a new car.
Yeah.
It's very we have a very superficial culture. It's just Western culture in general. It's like
the way I always see it in my head is like we have this obsession with the label, and we couldn't care less about the product.
Yeah.
It's that first outer shell of human behavior and actions is all that counts. And when it comes to something that's like an inch deeper and like one layer deeper, it's like, don't worry about it. No one's looking at that. Focus on the label. And it's kind of like, when a company tries to sell a product, they'll put a lot more time into maybe marketing the product than actually let's try to better the quality of the product. Because if it's really good, it sells itself.
Yeah.
And that's been always been my approach. Like, you focus on, the product, and then if it's good, it sells itself. But yeah, you're right, man. There's, this is difficult because things have always been like this, Clinton. It's hard to, who are we to try to, this is going to be different because we want it to be different.
No,
it's how people are, and you just got to accept it, I guess.
Well, they ever did. I mean, it's always been very materialistic, very superficial, just culturally, keeping up with the Joneses is whatever you used to call it. Right now, it's just I got to get what that guy has, or my thing has to be better than their thing. Social media just enhances it, and it's perfect for the businesses that are marketing and that are trying to sell a product, because you have so much data now. They have all these like big data platforms and stuff.
They call them. They have this new category. They're called attention engineers. It's a new job. I'm serious. They call them attention engineers, and they are engineering how to capture human attention. So they're using most recent research in human psychology, and they're mastering like the size of letters, the color of letters, the presentation, the tone of voice, and what kind of voice, and how to better capture human attention. So marketing, in political terms, you call it propaganda, but they're really the same thing. You're trying to convince someone of something. It may or may not be true. Or maybe some truth to it, but it might be not the whole truth. But what you do is you're tapping in all these glitches in human psychology, these loopholes in human psychology, and you hammer an idea through their head, and people get sucked into it because especially in these days, because we're so overwhelmed with information, we can't stop and think about every single little piece of information that is given to us. So what do? Well, it must be true. It's convincing. It's like a con artist looking you in the eye and telling me, trust me with your money, man. I got you. Believe in me. And as long as they look you in the eye, what do? Oh, it must be true. Like, the guy's so convincing,
yep.
And I think that a lot of these people that are successful, they're not necessarily doing anything other than just being very convincing and selling you something that may or may not be a good product, and it's kind of sad, man. Like, I think that there's so many things we could be doing with everything we're discovering about the human mind, and using it for those means, to me, seems like almost like, you're taking the dark side. You chose to become a Sith Lord over a Jedi, and that's kind of how that's how I break it down to my daughters, by the way. You want to be a Sith Lord or a Jedi?
There you go. Get them watching Star Wars.
That's how I try to,
You learn a lot about morality.
I believe there's more morality in Star Wars than, a lot of places that people put a lot of their time into it, yeah.
They're changing it, though.
Yeah. It's watered down a lot. It's the last ones looking like the Avengers, which is like, man, like but the thing is, people found a recipe that sells, and they know it's going to sell. And at the end of the day, that's what they care about, man. It's like the same thing UFC. They found a recipe that works. Is it what's best for the art? No, but it's what sells the most. So screw it. So money has become the end goal, and the hardcore fans are like, no, but it's just
it seems very maybe demeaning, or it sounds like it undermines things a lot. But there's so many interim titles now. It's almost like they're props. I don't know, and man. It sucks to say it because it's so.
I wonder. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I hope that in the long run, what would happen is they're going to lose their hardcore base, which people like me and you that have been watching the UFC since the 90s, and we're going to lose that, and they are going to. I mean, they're catering to the NASCAR crowd. And the truth about the NASCAR crowd is, if something interesting is on the other channel, they'll flip channels just like that. They're not loyal fans. So the one reason I like ACB is because their motto is less show, more fight. So they make it very clear, you're not getting a title fight because you're pretty.
Yep.
I don't care if you're good looking. I don't care if you can sell tickets. Can you fight? And that's what's going to warrant you getting a title shot. And the UFC had that, and they've lost that in detriment of, whatever. It's starting to resemble a Mexican soap opera to me, to be honest.
All the novellas.
Yeah, it's a novella. That's like you're watching a novella. And in the best generation of fighters ever, the quality has never been better. But their systems aren't I think everyone knows this. It's pretty obvious these days. But I like ACB for that reason. I think the UFC is losing their hardcore fan base, and I think in the long run that's going to hurt them. I hope so.
Yeah, it's watered down. First of all, it's on too much. There's too much.
Yeah.
It's oversaturated. I can't do it anymore. I don't keep up. I used to, when I think there was only 5 championships, 5 weight categories at tops or something. And then here's another one.
It's because it sells. But my question is, I don't know. It's kind of like, imagine, and if you expose people, if you expose yourself too much, it might saturate it,
Yep.
And I think the UFC is starting to cross that line. I can't remember. I don't get excited about UFCs. I very rarely watch them, to be honest. I think they have a huge problem in their hands, whereas they lost the Chuck Liddells of the world and the Ronda Rouseys and the people that were drawing a lot of ticket sales, and they're trying to create new heroes. But the problem with MMA, and I didn't foresee this problem, I think no one saw it, is it's very different from football, because let's say you're a Patriots fan. You follow the Patriots, not the players. It's great you may like the player, but if that player retires, you're still a fan of the team.
Oh, it's very tribal.
Very tribal, exactly. When your fighter retires, you may not like that other guy that's coming to replace him. He's not as charismatic. He's not from the same nationality as you. I don't know. You may dislike him for a number of different reasons, and it's very difficult to create. UFC has the job, and it's a very difficult task of constantly creating new heroes. Whereas if you're in basketball, you have to get that fan to fall in love with the team once when they're 8 years old, and that's about it. They're fans for life. Mm-hmm. So the UFC has an enormous task in their hand because it's an individual sport. And I think that's a primary reason why individual sports never sell as much as team sports.
See, to me, the most successful professional wrestling promotion in the world right now is the UFC.
Yeah.
They have the same job.
Yeah.
And immediately MMA fans are going to be mad at me. Look, all they're worried about is, why are we paying to watch? Why should we pay to watch this fight? Why does what they're doing in the middle of the ring matter? Like, why are we here and why are we paying? Like, why should we pay? Why are they fighting, for example, or why are they wrestling and why should we pay our money to see it?
Yeah.
And they're able to build these heroes because they're, okay, this guy's going to keep on winning, and they're able to tell the story, and it's fake. But so that's just done a talent relations, right?
Yeah.
The real and fake and what's actually happening in the ring, that's just talent relations. All the rest of it, they still do all the drama stuff, and we're going to get you to come in the cage after, and you're going to push him and say all this stuff. Tell me that isn't scripted. Yeah. They ushered him in. He called Brock Lesnar. DC called Brock Lesnar at the cage at the end. That's a novella. That's pro wrestling.
It's pro wrestling 101. It is novella, and I don't blame them for doing it. Like I've always said this, I don't blame the Connors of the world. I don't blame people that are doing these things. Like Kevin Lee trained with me for years, and I love him to death. But he's probably making triple the money he used to because he's starting developing that person. I understand perfectly well what he does. This is why I'll never understand this, Clinton, is why people applaud it. That I don't get.
What?
Why are people applauding this sort of why is that making it more interesting? If you're watching a fight, to me, what's interesting is the technical aspect. I appreciate the art. If I put it on mute a lot of times, and I love Joe Rogan, don't get me wrong. But sometimes it's like I can watch the fight and just see the footwork and go, wow, that guy's incredible. And I don't need the press conference to be like and make it. I don't know, but maybe it's because I fought and I have to see things differently. But yeah, the average fan is practically they would rather watch the press conference than the actual fight.
Well, the average fan is the average NASCAR fan, and they're watching for the crashes.
They're watching for the crashes, exactly.
The drama,
You said it. Hit the nail on the head.
So
we're just being idealistic here, Clinton. We're 99% of people probably disagree with us, and that's okay. It's just I think that when we've been so into this for so long that it's just natural that we see things, from under a different light.
We are literally the old guys watching, like in my day.
Yeah, I find myself sound like my grandpa all the time. It's embarrassing. I'll be, say it's like, oh, these young kids, they have it so easy, and it's true, they do have it easier. And my grandfather used to tell me the same thing, but I always say this now, like, yeah, my grandfather did have it harder than me. It's just that thing, life has been getting increasingly easier. And I remember, I was in, because I go to UNLV now. Like I said in the classroom the other day, I think that millennials are the most spoiled generation to ever walk the earth.
But they're the unhappiest.
They're the unhappy, but they're all because they're spoiled. Because they got everything handed to them. They don't have to fight for anything. Where's the glory?
There's no gratification.
There's nothing. You don't get just everything. When things are easy, they're just disregarded, man. And I said that in the class. It was highly unpopular, by the way. No one agreed with me. Everyone thought, they had it so rough. They went through the recession, and I'm like, what? What? Well, I mean, maybe some people are disagreeing with me right now, but I'm going, can't think of a civilization that's had it easier than our own. Like, I cannot think of a civilization that's had life. Life has never been easier. But we've never been so miserable. But
having the wherewithal and having the perspective of living in the 80s, 90s, 70s, whatever, living in a generation before this and then showing up here and saying, shit, you don't even have to know anything. Your phone does it for you.
Yeah.
The phone isn't even a phone. The phone is an information gateway. It does whatever. You want food, you want to get laid, you want whatever you want.
It's right there in your pocket. You know what's crazy is like the amount of information, how much you can learn about people in the world from your phone. From your phone, you can literally lay in bed and be no more than Isaac Newton knew about the world. 400 years ago. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, geez, man, like we got it all wrong, man. Like, and I find myself, and myself included, I'm not pointing fingers there. Like probably the majority of the time, I'm not actually learning something new. It's like mindless communication or just checking out what other people are doing on the internet. And it's kind of embarrassing when you think about it. But what is wrong with us? We're messed up in the head, man. Like there's so many great things we could be doing with our time, and we're not doing these things, man. And I think it's part of the fact that things got too easy. Like I really feel that way. Like people are like, oh, the recession, man. Like these kids had video games at home. If you had an Xbox at home, you're not poor.
No,
not by world standards. Like you may be poor compared to your neighborhood, but you're not poor by world standards. Like, you're poor when you have like, okay, I'm going to go home. There may be food or may not be food. Let's find out when I get home.
I got asked for change the other day. The guy had he had like an Android phone. So this guy had like a touchscreen cell phone. Yeah. I've had multiple homeless guys wearing Jordans asking me for money. Oh, man. It's like a $200 pair of shoes.
These things make me want to lose faith in people. And you're like, you know what, man?
Even our homeless people are rich.
Yeah,
like
by world standards in the U.S., if you're a homeless person, you're better off than a lot of people in developing countries. Homeless people, a lot of them are just mentally ill. Like there's a lot of mental illness in that population.
There's a lot, and the hospitals just let them out in the street, and a lot of them. Well,
that's a huge failure of the system as a whole. Like there's no reason why, I mean, I'm probably unpopular here, but I think that is a societal problem, and every grown person carries some degree of responsibility there, even if it's not your child. It's a human being born in the same country as you, and I think there's a level of social responsibility that we all have, and it's not a popular position these days, but that's how I feel about it.
No, I think we're all connected. I don't know exactly how, but I feel like all living organisms, the world, the earth included, all people, we're all connected. And I feel like if it isn't a priority or on the tip of your tongue all the time to want better for everyone, like you're freaking
that's
weird.
Why we're around. You know what we made it? We made it because we get along. Yeah. We made it because we understood that if we want to fight that tiger, we can't do it alone.
Yep.
You know what? I'll help you. You help me. We get it together. We a cooperative species, and I think we forget that. But like, we do better in community. We don't do well by ourselves. So this whole individualistic, approach to life, it goes, okay, that's great. You're doing well in a world where China delivers manufactured products to your doorstep. You don't feel like you need anyone. But in fact, you couldn't do a thing without. The reason why you can be this individualistic prick is because of China. It's because all these other people are doing a lot of work for you. So you can't tell me that we're not a cooperative species. But that is completely missed. Like, no, I can just focus on yourself and, screw everyone else. You don't have to worry about your neighbor. I disagree, man. Like, I do want my neighbor to do well, and I want to make sure his kids go to good schools. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, it's the opposite. I think the idea that we're individualistic and we can't survive alone is very much in denial with reality. Community is, everybody goes on social media and says family first or whatever the hashtag is for that. I don't fucking know. Yeah. But then, all you really see them do is they'll show up at stuff. They want us to take a picture and say I was there, but like, what were you doing? Like, everybody goes to the rallies, the Trump or Bernie Sanders or whoever. Well, what did you learn? Like, what did you? Oh, I was there. I was there. I just want people to see that I do that stuff too. Like, they just want to be liked. Yeah. I think just very vain, insecure people.
I have a way of like looking at stuff now, and like it's with me, social media is fascinating. But I have students of mine that for every training session, like 5 Instagram posts about training.
What?
Like the ratio is like 5 to 1. For every time they train, they're like 5 posts about training. And when I see that sort of ratio, like I know what's going on. It's very clear what's going on, like, okay, every now and then, like, I do it. I'm not pointing fingers in the sense where I think I'm higher above anyone else, but there is something to be said that if you spend more time talking about something you're doing than actually doing it, there's something wrong there.
No,
there's a little discrepancy there. And like, I think we have to observe that and analyze it critically and go, what is this really about? Yeah, and politically, it's the same thing, by the way. People talk about like, oh, my country. I'm a patriot. I'm like, okay, that's great that you hashtag that and you have like 8,000 memes on your Facebook page, but what are you actually doing to better your country? Oh, shit.
Nothing. They're doing
not pointing fingers here. Like I hope I don't sound condescending or think I could certainly do a lot more. I think we all fall in that category. It's a self-criticism, if anything, but
I'm wrong all the time, man.
Yeah. I get corrected all the time, and I don't mind. Actually, I surround myself with people that correct me. I was just exchanging emails with a guy who actually inspired a documentary film. His name is Roberto Pedreira. Very smart guy, and he's constantly correcting me, like on like little things. If I say something right, he'll correct me. And I have a massive ego when it comes to the mats. But even like, I guess like when he corrects me, like things like historical things, like to me, that's like, there's a part of me, it's like, I want to get angry, but that lasts like 3 minutes. And I go, I'm glad he did that. because I actually feel like it improved me. So you can use these things to actually maybe catapult yourself to a better place and learn something new, or you can just get angry and get mad at the person. But I try to surround myself with people that correct me.
This whole podcast thing, going and training and meeting different people, this is selfish. This is for me. I want to learn more.
I feel you know what I'm saying. Yeah, no, I get it.
So I mean, if I knew everything, that would be sad because I don't know that much.
No, and there's nothing wrong with being selfish too. Like there's place for selfishness. Like when I teach class, I chose to teach jiu-jitsu not because I wanted to change the world. It's because I like jiu-jitsu. It was very selfish.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like tapping people out is awesome. Like that's something incredibly selfish. But we carried both these traits. Just to go back to our point, like we have a need for to live in a community and help the community so we can do better. It's actually selfish to help the community, but we want the community to do better for our own sake. That's how I feel about jiu-jitsu. Like I want to teach jiu-jitsu because I love jiu-jitsu, but I know that I'm able to teach jiu-jitsu if I work in a community. Right. So these things, they coexist. They're not mutually exclusive. And that's how I feel my jiu-jitsu life, man. Like, it's always been something that it's improved on me, and it's been incredibly selfish, but I think it's been very positive for people around me too. That's what they tell me. Like in some ways, teaching jiu-jitsu has helped me impact the world in a very tiny way. But I think, introducing jiu-jitsu to people has changed a lot of their lives for the better. So
no doubt. No doubt.
I mean, I know it's changed mine. I feel like I have a huge debt towards jiu-jitsu because I've gotten way more from jiu-jitsu than I have given jiu-jitsu. That's how I feel about it. So personally, I feel that there's a debt there.
Oh, I sound corny. It literally saved my life.
Yeah,
I had no idea last summer. I wound up being diagnosed diabetes type 1. My blood sugar was through the roof for like months. I had no idea. I was just peeing all the time. I'm like, eh. So I finally got a glucometer, tested my sugar, and it was like 500 or 600. I had no idea. I had no energy. It was like heaps of pre-workout and caffeine just to get on the mat at all. I was dying. And I was like, cool. So I went and saw an endocrinologist, got everything sorted out. But yeah, it was the workouts and stuff that was actually bringing it down low enough to not just have a stroke and just done. So it was like any morning that I woke up from sleeping was like 50-50 is what the doctor told me. Yeah. Like most people that find this like later in life show up like, in a, what do you call it, gurney or a stretcher, so that you figure this stuff out. And I
recommended to a student of mine who works at the Nellis Air Force Base. Like I know, that veterans really struggle in this country with depression, PTSD, whatever. And, the treatment, therapy, drugs, whatever. And I've been trying to get them to come to the gym. I think that'd be a better form of therapy. Like I think that would be the ultimate form of therapy for them would be jiu-jitsu. Like I'm no expert, I probably, maybe drugs and therapy are just as necessary, but because I know jiu-jitsu and I have seen what it does for people, I've always pushed like, you guys got to get these guys in the gym every day. Like give them a home. So like, it doesn't matter how messed up you are inside. Like when you're training, you forget about that, man. You're in Zen, like you're in paradise, man. You're in heaven.
Oh yeah.
You're in this place where nothing else matters, man. My main concern is not letting you pass my guard, and I have to put 100% of my focus into that for you not to pass my guard, and that's fun. But it is this form of supreme meditation that I feel that I'm in when I'm training. And I've had rough days, man. Like I've had like we all do. Like we all go through like horrible times in our lives. But jiu-jitsu has kept me sane.
Hell yeah.
Like it's kept me, I tell people tell me that jiu-jitsu is physically healthy. I laugh at them. You're stupid if you believe that. It's the worst thing for your body. Like you're so out of your mind if you believe jiu-jitsu is healthy. Like it's physically healthy. It's not.
You'll have abs.
I tell just my new students too, they look at me puzzled. They're like, no, your cardio is going to improve a little bit. Your heartbeat a little bit stronger.
You probably get abs.
Yeah, you get abs, but like everything else is going to be destroyed. So you put it on the scale, it's a horrible idea. But psychologically speaking, your mind is which is the health that I really care about. Like my elbows hurt, whatever. It's going to hurt when you're 80, doesn't matter. Jiu-jitsu or no jiu-jitsu, it's going to hurt when you get older. But the psychological health is what I'm really concerned with, and I think jiu-jitsu is very healthy in that regard.
Well, man, it's definitely kept my head clear and straight. I want to do this again. You got some time next week?
I'm always around, man. Like I have like very flexible. I'm busy. Like sometimes my days are 15 hours long, sometimes 14. When I have an easy day, 12 hours long. But everything is flexible where I can move stuff around. The only thing that's cannot changeable is if I'm teaching at night. But yeah, we can do this again anytime.
Absolutely, man. Well, I got a jam to the airport. Robert Drysdale. Any plugs real quick?
Not really, man. only thing I plug a lot these days is our documentary film, because it's not for me, it's for the jiu-jitsu community. So I have no problems pushing it. It's called Close Guard, the Origins of Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil. Plan on releasing it before the end of the year. That's the goal. We're working hard on it. And I would like to ask everyone who's listening to help me promote this film, because this is for the community. It is something to help explain our roots, because we don't know them.
Absolutely, man. Well, dude, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Everybody, check him out. Robert Drysdale, Close Guard the movie. Support it, watch it, share it with your friends, and stay tuned, because we're going to do this again, because we got more stuff to talk about. I want to talk about the movie. I want to talk about this travel, but I'm about to miss a flight.
We can go on. We can go on forever, man. This has been fun. Thank you. Thank you so much, brother. Anytime, man. Anytime you're in town. Okay?